to our documentary commissioning panel. Spend time in some place every year. And joining us this morning, we have the decision makers from 4 main channels in this country. Now, as you all know, competition for commissions is the name of the game, and for producers it's vital to have an insight into the tastes and needs of the buyers making decisions in channels. But it's also a world where producers are trying to run successful businesses, and our programmes are our IP, and how we make our money, and for us it's about best home for our products sometimes. So to explore all the tensions and issues inherent in the commissioning process, I've got a panel of some of the most important decision makers in factual TV today. Each has chosen their favourite homegrown programme, and they've also borrowed their favourite show from another channel, which hopefully will allow us to explore all the different questions that we on behalf should be asking them. So to start us off, we have Joe Clinton-Davis from ITV, we have Ralph Lee from Channel 4, we have Celia Taylor from Sky, and Emma Willis from BBC. And at the end, there'll be a chance for everybody to ask questions. So if you could hold off till then, that would be fantastic. So, Joe, can you kick us off, please, with your commission, your choice of commission from ITV, and just give us a little bit of an insight into what it is and why you've chosen it.
I was very torn, actually, about what to choose, because there's a lot that I'm proud of and felt programmes that are really emblematic of what we do, from Aylesbury Prison to our Queen. And if you came to our access session yesterday, those are the sort of pillars from prisons to palaces. What I've chosen, though, was, although I don't, we want a rich, mixed ecology of programming, and we don't just want presenter-led, I've chosen a clip from our stable that shows actually a really smart use of presenter, where the presenter adds a layer to the story, because his emotional responses to the story you'll see adds an extra emotional dimension. And then at the end, I've chosen another example from another channel of a presenter who does exactly the same thing. So it's just looking at where presenters can work. I was torn again whether to choose Paul O'Grady for The Love of Dogs, because there's such a symbiotic connection between presenter and subject. But here goes, at the other end of the spectrum, this is Trevor McDonald inside Death Row. I haven't vetted the tape, so it may just be a compilation, but let's go.
What's it like when one of your friends on death row is led away to be executed?
Well, you spend, years and years and months and hours of every day with a person. You talk every day, hey, what are you doing? Let's eat something, let's make something to eat. And, and he eventually comes by one day and like, yeah, I gotta go, man. And when he leaves and turns his back and walks down them steps, he ain't coming back. They're gonna kill him.
About an hour's drive south of Chicago in the state of Indiana is one of America's oldest and most notorious maximum security prisons. The majority of the 1,900 inmates here are serving long sentences for unspeakable crimes.
And when I came at you, I wasn't just going to stick you an inch. I was going to run something all the way through. Get out of here!
12 are due to be executed on the orders of the state. For 2 weeks, I was given privileged access to this dark and forbidding world.
I do deserve to be executed. Bottom line, I ain't gonna candy coat it. I deserve to be executed.
Welcome to Indiana's State Prison.
Why did you commission that series?
Well, we know that there is a sort of visceral interest in art on the part of our audience in prisons. I think our prison series had shown that. I think that the world of death row also raises really interesting moral issues. It wasn't actually an easy choice. Was it going to be too dark for our audience? And I think without a presenter, it might well have felt very dark. An alien world, Indiana, but Trevor allowed us to sort of mediate that world, and he mediated those emotions for us, as well as allowing us to have our own. And I think that there are worlds that we're completely fascinated by, timeless places where people have got access. 14 Days in May that Paul Heyman had made, this is life and death at the extreme. And I think it speaks to a lot of people. And what we need to do on ITV is speak to a lot of people and right across the demographic. So we hope that this would have broad interest. It would have journalistic values, which is incredibly important to our factual. You'd learn something new, and you would swing, so to speak, in your range of emotions from empathy to disgust. You would engage with that topic on an emotional level as well as a journalistic one, and I think that is important when we think about what to commission.
So you've talked a little bit about it there, but when someone comes to you with an idea, people, obviously you cover an enormously broad range, your slots, ranging from 7:30 to post-watershed. Yeah. So what, if it's possible, what's the wow factor? What's the nugget that does it for you? What do you really, if you had to say your headlines of things that are important in any proposal?
Well, I think it's it's funny, it's sort of the bleedingly obvious in hindsight. And you almost think, why has nobody ever done this before? I remember Long Lost Family being pitched, and there's a chill that goes down your spine, and you think, my God, this has got everything. It's got emotional drama, it's got human interest, it's got the search process, it's a format that actually has an authenticity at its core, it's following something real, and you get it instantly. I think the very best ideas, there are ideas you struggle with, but if you look at our most successful titles, they all have a sort of simplicity, a directness of proposition, something that reaches out to that audience and you connect with instantly, and I connect with it as a commissioner, and I think, gosh, I believe other people will connect with that. So whether that is, to give you an example, Paul O'Grady on Battersea Dogs Home, he is passionate about dogs, and you knew, and we worked hard actually not to make this sort of just animal hospital, but to take the genre on, to create a sort of comedy doc, which also allowed for pathos and emotion. So at that one level, or a Perspectives, when I was pitched Warwick Davis on the story of the 7 Dwarfs of Auschwitz, and Warwick himself was playing in Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, and this was a film, Hitler's favourite film had been Snow White, the story of the 7 Dwarfs of Auschwitz, and dwarf entertainers hadn't been told, and what happened to them in the camps was an extraordinarily powerful story, and you thought, my gosh, I don't know again whether it's too dark for this audience and whether it even fits into the Perspectives, which is our art strand. But somewhere it spoke to people, and for an arts programme delivered 3 million viewers, we don't even need 3 million viewers. We just do these programmes because it's part of the broad range of factual that we're trying to, and the mix, the rich mix. So there are moments like that where you just think you get hit between the eyes. And then, of course, there are moments when you don't get hit between the eyes and you have to struggle quite hard. But on ITV, I think it is that instant, that cell that actually belies the complexity, the intelligence, the layers you can bring afterwards. I think the best ever documentary for me in the history of documentary is 7 Up. So when we were offered 56 Up, that's another sort of no-brainer. But you can't all come up with no-brainers, so you have to think about what are the great stories of our time, what are the places that we can get access to, what are the events that are happening in the real world that we can either corral into a soft and enriching documentary format, or that we can just relay to this audience, and not too much explanation. The moment you have to explain it to me, you have to explain it to the audience, and we can't do that on the EPG.
So 7up and that whole, how many now? Several series long. You know, from what you were talking there, that's actually the only one that hasn't got a presenter on it. And obviously on ITV you talked about Trevor McDonald.
Oh, well,
you do other things.
doesn't have a presenter
no.
on it. Our Queen doesn't have a presenter on it. I mean, we do an awful lot of programming at 9 o'clock that has no presenter on it.
So, but what I want to know is, you know, presenters are actually very important for you. And, you know, it's a lot of your 9 o'clock travelogues or, you know, Joanna Lumley, there's an interesting stable of people you have there. Is that, you know, what importance do you place on your celebrity presenters? And going forwards, do you think that, you know, this is something that you're looking to refresh, or do you have, you know, plans for more? What significance are celebrities on ITV?
I think the Holy Grail. I think it's great to have some treats in the schedule and to take the presenter not on a literal journey, but an emotional journey where you're pushing their boundaries. But I have to give a very clear message. It's great to have some treats in the schedule with our sort of national treasure presenters, whether that's Joanna, Billy Connolly, Trevor, Martin Clunes, you know, and they're just occasional treats in the schedule. I really don't want to be over-reliant on presenters. I think the Holy Grail is to find shows that can connect directly with the audience, and sometimes you need a presenter to pull that together, like Long Lost Family. But I think to find returnable documentaries that speak to the audience at 9 o'clock, and even at Pre-Watershed, we've been perhaps over-reliant on presenters. The issue is that Pre-Watershed, the budgets are absolutely tiny, and if you can deliver a presenter-led show and deliver 4 million viewers on a budget that it's almost embarrassing to articulate, but I will have pushed, you know, that's a real return on investment.
I'm pushing.
So, well, around about 37K. So I think that, so, you know, but absolutely we need to look beyond the presenter, because it's about the range of flavours, the breadth of flavours, and you don't want to have to be reliant on presenters to deliver, and in fact we don't need to be, and we're not. So I think that's a sort of misconception, actually, and if you look at our slate, I like the balance to be at least 2/3 non-presenter, and then have those great treats in the schedule that where you can bring a presenter to the table. And for me, the presenter has absolutely got to have a really close connection between the subject. You can't just, subject and presenter have to be married and go on a sort of marriage journey, because otherwise they're just grafted on and it's sort of meaningless, and you don't get something as enriching as we need.
So £37,000 for a half hour, I presume, is actually a pretty tight budget, and a presenter of the standing of a lot of people you have suck that up. And that does present a challenge for producers, doesn't it? And it presents a challenge for you to make sure that the quality stays high, and we've not just got topping and tailing. And, you know, what do you sort of note that challenge with producers, and how do you help them tackle it?
You do, and you box and cox, and I hope that moving forward, when we look at our Pre-Watershed slate, we can box and cox some of those budgets, and there is a sort of higher tariff slot on a Thursday night where we do play Paul O'Grady now, slightly higher tariff. It's still embarrassing, but it's higher. And you just hope you can box and cox. And yes, you have to manage people's expectations, but you have to be clever. And it's about how you can be clever on tight budgets, and ITV1 is all about breadth and scale, and if you're playing a piece Pre-Watershed, you need to play a piece that will work against the soaps or popular drama on the BBC, and so you have to have a genuine alternative, and we have to think about those worlds that we can harness and get into, and just work with producers to manage those budgets. But hopefully, I mean, just as you say, you amortize costs across a series, it would be nice to amortize costs across our schedule, so it's something we'd need to look at. But at the moment, you have to be canny.
So, can I just ask everybody else here, I mean, this presenter thing, it seems to me in a world where, you know, everybody would quite like a show on X or Y or animals or whatever, presenters can actually provide that definition. So, you know, for instance, you know, Trevor MacDonald on, you know, works brilliantly on that. He's a wonderful journalist and obviously has a huge track record. Would the rest of you, starting with you, Emma, would you have commissioned Trevor MacDonald to go to death row?
Probably not, but Paul O'Grady is not a presenter in that show. That's why it's so brilliant. I mean, I don't think he's operating like a presenter. He's someone who seems to live there. And I beg your pardon?
Your mic's not working. I think you might have to pull it out.
I've got quite a loud voice. Not loud enough. I can't do anything about it.
Maybe put it on this side of you. That might help.
You're right, he does
How about
Yeah.
that? Sorry. Come on. What's so brilliant about that show is that Paul O'Grady is not being a presenter. He's absolutely the subject. You think he's going to walk away with all the dogs. I mean, I wanted to sort of choose that one, but I didn't.
Yes.
I love it. So, but Trevor MacDonald's not. I mean, we'd send Louis Theroux, wouldn't we?
And you did.
And we'd probably send Ross Kemp.
No.
Okay, this is
all
quite
go
interesting.
together.
So we've all got our faces.
We
And who would you say?
Herzog, so everyone chooses the right
Yes.
person for death row, don't they? You know.
Yes. Okay, and Joe, can I just ask you one last thing before we move on to Ralph? And it's a big one. Let's sort of talk about it with everybody as well. Is the holy grail really, which is formats, factual formats. And you know, you've obviously had a lot of success with Long Lost Family. I suppose Paul O'Grady could be described as a format, and it's these loose sort of factual formats that work so well for the schedule. Do you think that you know, I have heard a lot of channels talking about format fatigue, especially when things are over-formatted. So how does one make sure that one can present a format that works for the channel and the schedule, but at the same time not making the audience think, oh, here we are again, same place, same idea?
I think you have to be. I think a format has to follow the genuine narrative, and it should be a sort of corset that's very lightly worn and not that obvious to the audience. It's a way of corralling the content, but actually enhancing it at the same time. It's a way of sort of bringing that content sort of to the front, but it's still rich in documentary. So I think it is very hard. I mean, on ITV, we launch formats cold. There's no Nursery Slopes, there's no BBC Two to launch a format and then move it across. So at 9 o'clock, you're absolutely going in there cold. But I think it's about what are the stories of our time, what are people genuinely experiencing, what are the sort of territories that feel broad and rich, and actually you can get into those territories in a slightly different way through an imaginative approach. And a format really is all about an imaginative approach. And there's format fatigue when people aren't imaginative about how you move a format on. You know, how many shows can you have? I mean, there are brilliant shows like Britain's Got Talent where you're voting people out. But I think, you know, for a factual programme, if everyone keeps employing the same vernacular, you're going to get format fatigue. So it's incumbent on people to think, how do we harness this content and do it in a way that sort of reflects the content and doesn't get in the way of it and brings something fresh?
Celia, what's your view on formats and you know, how many new ideas are coming through? Because you know, the schedules have got some really rock solid incumbents at the moment, haven't they?
You know, returnable. I mean, I spend more time talking about returnable rather than what's the format. So actually, I think that's the thing now. I think you can get bogged down with what's the format. And I think a more interesting word now is structure. It's like, how are you going to structure it to actually tell a coherent story that kind of has a payoff? And I think that's much more interesting. And I think, interestingly, you kind of, it's like the format legacy is now sort of helping to structure documentaries in a way that makes it much more audience friendly. But the returnable thing is the toughest thing. I mean, you know, I think that's something we all share. And you know, and entertainment find it difficult too. But when they find it, it lasts for 10 years, or you know. And I think for factual, you know, if you could find a returnable proposition that you could actually envisage lasting for 10 years. I mean, it would just be extraordinary. And so to find something that you can actually think that we could get 4 seasons out of that is kind of rare, and and that's really what we spent a lot of time thinking about. And I think documentary makers are so sort of story and real life driven that sometimes they don't necessarily think about actually how can we, some of the more sausage factory scale companies think that. But actually the really, really smart, clever documentary makers, you sort of think, how can we actually make this become more than just a brilliant 6-parter? And I think that's an ongoing dialogue and a struggle that, all broadcasters have, really.
I don't think, I think it's partly about the format sort of kind of falling apart, but I think the bigger thing is what they're, in the end, almost all the formats that we used to watch were about rebuilding communities, and I think people have just had it. We need to find new purposes. You could practically use the same format to a different end. I think that's why people don't buy them, is because they're not to a different purpose that you can believe in, really.
We don't need a whole programme of Gareth Malone finding his choir, because it's kind of like, we know he's going to find a choir. Can you just kind of crack on with it? I know, exactly, because you don't need to do that. So yes. I think, the audience understands the structure, and I think, as soon as the audience starts seeing the heavy hand of the producer, then you're in trouble.
So the same format to a different purpose?
Yeah, formats used to be massively important on Channel 4, with Wife Swap and Super Nanny and Secret Millionaire in particular, and we've stopped doing them all. And in a way, in the schedule, the place that they had in the schedule is now occupied by, equally powerful brands like One Born Every Minute and 24 Hours on A&E, The Hotel, Educating Yorkshire, which is the follow-up to Educating Essex. They're big, they're bold, the audience knows what they're going to get every week, and they drive the Channel 4 schedule in lots of respects, but they're not format. So we've moved on from making formatted documentary to making documentary in these big kind of precinct, often using fixed capture and rig technology. And they tell stories and capture stories in different ways. So I don't think format's dead. We'll find another one. But as Emma points out, transformational narrative, you know where it's going to go.
You want to destroy things, really. In a way, you want to blow things up. You can't almost anything but bringing...
Yes, or dressing.
Yes, just to kind of go away.
In many ways, One Born Every Minute is a format, because you know exactly how it's going to start and you know how it's going to end. So, that, you wouldn't use the word format applied to it, but actually, that's what I'm talking about, the structure. There is a kind of underpinning structure that the audience understand that there will be this great payoff at the end. So, I
think the difference is that the action isn't created by the producer.
I think I think that's the problem, where there's an appetite for authenticity. And when a format's max of artifice and the heavy hand of the producer, then it just doesn't work anymore. The audience can see through it. They're savvy. And, and I think you need that authentic material all the time to be feeding.
Particularly where they thrive off conflict, and if the audience is feeling that the producers manufactured conflict, then I don't think they readily buy it anymore. What they do want is story and character and narrative, and what One Born does very cleverly is find a place where that happens naturally over and over and over again. And it's not formatted at all, but it's perfectly formatted, because everything that happens is perfectly natural. The producers don't intervene with what happens, and yet they get material that they can shape as if it was a format. So.
Yes, and the producers really cleverly take the same basic idea and repeat it every week with stuff that matters to the viewers.
Because they're in a precinct where they're guaranteed that those narratives will come in. So 24 Hours on A&E and One Born Every Minute are slightly easier in that respect, because the stories are just going to burst through the door. When a woman comes into hospital 9 months pregnant, something's going to happen. There's just no other way out of that story. And the more complex ones are, the school is really complicated. I went up to Yorkshire when they were filming the rig in the school in Dewsbury, and you go into the truck and you see all these screens up there, and you just got hundreds of kids, and it's bedlam in the canteen, and the lessons kicking off over there, and the headmaster's study action over there, and you just think, how do you close in on this? How do you? It's not like One Born where you can go, well, we've got a room with 2 people, a husband and a wife, and a baby coming out. Here, you've just got to find your story in this kind of enormous haystack, and the skill of the producers in identifying the kids and the teachers and the relationships that are going to generate narrative, and closing in on that and trying to get the mics on the right people at the right time and capture it all, and then deal with all the kind of consent framework, is an extraordinary thing to witness. So in the end, it feels less like a format than One Born, but it is nevertheless a big kind of frame that you can put over this place and draw stories from.
So from that really big show down to your choice of documentary.
Yeah, I thought I wouldn't choose one of our big, obvious rig documentaries this year because everyone's quite familiar with them. But I wanted to choose something a little bit, sort of showing a bit of different range. I mean, I think Channel 4 docs at the moment have a very clear sense of identity, a very clear tone of voice, partly characterised by the big shows that we've mentioned, but also I think that tone of voice spreads out into cutting edge and true stories and the other single docs that we commission and shorter run series like Skint. And the promise to the audience is that it's going to be quite a ride on Channel 4. It's going to be a window into contemporary life that will sometimes shock you. It'll hopefully make you laugh. There'll be emotion in there. It'll never bore you. You know, I think people really get that. It's why young audiences come to documentaries on Channel 4 in really big numbers. But I thought I'd choose something from slightly outside that. So because something special happened this year that we found. So we did this documentary about Richard III where we just got really enormously lucky where we found you know, the bones of a medieval king, which never happens. And in a way, it's a specialist factual programme with a doc sensibility. So as our clip, I've chosen that, and as my clip that we'll show later, I've chosen a doc with a specialist factual sensibility. So in archaeology and forensic history, everyone's done the kind of bones on the table sequence. But I think this is the mother and father of all of them, because you've got a medieval king whose skull was sliced off at the top, who had a sword smack into the base of his head, nearly severing his head. He's got 5 or 6 different wounds, and he's got an S, no A&E, and he's got an S-shaped spine, you know, and his body's there on the table. And this clip we drop in at the end of that sequence, and it also illustrates how presenters can play a really special role, which I might talk about after the clip. So,
should we play?
I will play it.
So then there's one final wound on the skeleton, and again we're very sure that this is something that happened after the death of Richard, and that's on the pelvis. There's actually a line across here, and if we look at this, there's an equivalent line on the part of the bone that's broken away. We can see that something's come in from the back. It's penetrated slightly to the front there. So what we think is that somebody has actually stabbed him with some kind of a bladed weapon.
This seems to fit in with the idea, if we imagine and accept the accounts that he is bound over a horse, trussed, and legs are dangling one side, the arms the other side. It means his buttocks are about head height as he's being led from Bosworth to Leicester, and that is such an opportunistic target for somebody with a dagger, just to go like that.
Into the buttocks?
Yeah, into the backside.
Well, that was pretty brutal in there. I mean, to have a chunk taken out of your skull and then something resembling a hammer blow and then a, spike through the head and then the back of his head taken off and his brain spilling out. And then let's face it, after what we're all kind of, inferring from what they're saying is a poor guy, he got stabbed, in his arse, basically. And, but at least that was what happened. Those were brutal times. That was, medieval battle was pretty sort of ruthless. And also what it confirmed for me is that is Richard III. There is no way, in my mind, this is Richard III. If that is not Richard III, that is one unlucky monk.
Well, I didn't choose it just for the salaciousness of him being stabbed in the arse, but a lot of people were critical of Simon Farnaby in this doc because they thought, why have you got that bloke from Horrible Histories to present a really important historical discovery, like this? And actually, I think that little scene there perfectly encapsulates why he was really brilliant in it, that he does the kind of conventional presenter's job of tying up the scene, of summarising what you've seen. He also humanises the bones on the table really quite nicely. He remembers that it's a human being, which is something that the role that Philippa, the crazy Ricardian discoverer of the bones, also does in the doc. But he also brings humour to it. He brings a laugh to it, which he's not actually laughing, he's sort of feeling it, but he's also delivering a line that can make you laugh. But the end line, he's sort of actually delivering the key point, which is like, you know, at that point, once you've gone through all that evidence, you really, really can't deny that that is Richard III on the table. And that was shot before we had the DNA results. So that really is the point where all the pathology comes together and says, okay, we can genuinely say this was him. And then the DNA is the icing on the cake. So it was a lovely scene. And I just think, you know, for years you do those scenes where people pour over bones on the table. And, you know, it's quite familiar. Once in your life you get to do a King of England, you know, it'll never happen again.
But so what point in the procedure of the archaeology did Channel 4 join in? Because this is a single doc, you know, okay, so it's Darlow Smithson, really, you know, great production company, but, you know, you're not going to commission it unless a single doc, I would presume, unless it was something revolutionary or headlining.
No, we got involved. Well, but unusually, this wasn't a dig to let's see what there is in the Greyfriars Priory in Leicester. The offer on the table was we're going to dig to try and find the bones of Richard III. And it was being driven by Philippa, who you saw there in the clip, and by Leicester University. And she'd persuaded their archaeology department to get behind this, and she'd managed to bring some funding to the table, and they brought some funding to it. And it was, you know, Darlow brought it to us, and it was a risk to do. And honestly, I thought it was a completely crazy idea that I know from doing time team for years and years and years, you never go after a particular target with archaeology. You say, well, here's a bit of ground, what might be there, what questions can we ask of it, and what might we discover? The idea that you go after an individual, or particularly a famous individual of that kind of high profile, is completely crazy. So I thought, I didn't know what we'd get out of it, but I admired the kind of passion and commitment of the team, the evidence that they might find the Greyfriars and find bodies. I thought they would quite likely find bodies, which is, you know, could give you quite a good mystery story. And so we agreed to back it, to back the filming of the archaeology. And then, to be honest, if they found nothing, we wouldn't have made the programme. I mean, what point would there have been? And then we got a phone call saying, yeah, we found some human remains, and you know, there's a huge curvature of the spine, which was a bit of a spine-tingling moment for all concerned.
So when someone comes to you with a single doc or something they're passionate about, or a series, a new genre, what is, you know, the same question as I asked Joe, what's the sort of the killer wow factor thing that makes the Ralph, you know, neurons go, yes?
There's a lot of telly on, isn't there, you know, all the time, and you're always looking for something special that will stand out in that, and sometimes that's the access, sometimes it's the cool subject, sometimes it's the tone of voice. So, you know, another clip that I might have shown today, which I think might be shown in a panel this afternoon, is Leo Maguire's film Dogging Tales. And dogging's not a subject that everybody necessarily wants to watch a programme about, but he's a very kind of particular director with an unbelievable eye. He's a photographer. He made a film for us called Gypsy Blood last year, which is just unbelievably visceral and kind of really hard to watch, but very, very powerful. And he went out and filmed just off his own bat. He was doing a photography project with people who go dogging in the woods. And he came back with this taster tape that just had a kind of extraordinary tone of voice and a tonality to it. It showed no sex in it. It was just people talking about their lives and their motives and why they did it and what it brought to their lives. And we all responded to that and said, go and make a film. And he went off and made Dogging Tales, which I think is a really, again, it's a remarkable, standout bit of very unusual work, a really kind of quite odd, could be quite salacious documentary subject, handled with real intelligence and with a real strong sense of authorial voice. So we're drawn to specialness, and that's sometimes the character of the filmmaker, sometimes the tone of voice of it, sometimes it's, you know, the content itself or the access. But you always want, with single docs in particular, for there to be something that you really feel the best case scenario is a really good case scenario. You know, the best place we could end up is exceptional, not in the middle somewhere.
And somehow it's the definitive iteration. I mean, there are loads and loads of documentaries about the Moors murders. We're just doing an anniversary piece on the Moors murders. Really difficult territory, because sometimes you think you're raking over old coals and people don't want to come to it. But I think if you bring, as Ralph says, something new to the table, new evidence, new take, new approach, then you create that definitive iteration, and I think that's what you're always looking for, really.
So what's interesting about your department is that you cover specialist factual and religion and arts and documentary as well. And so kind of like it's all sort of neatly encapsulated at Channel 4, except for the fact that also, you know, factual entertainment and features commission what seem like documentaries like Big Fat Gypsy Wedding, and it's the same across, you know, all channels now. There is this blurring of, you know, who's allowed to commission what. You know, junior doctors commissioned by entertainment department at the BBC, and you do Bake Off. So, you know, it feels like you know, there's going to be, it's quite interesting for producers because it means that the field is wider. It's much, you know, much more people to talk to, but also how do you guys, you know, encourage indies to bring their best ideas to you? You know, what is it that you can offer them that, you know, make them want to come to BBC rather than Channel 4? Because sometimes, you know, it's just the iteration
well, it's true
of an
that
idea.
some projects do the rounds. You know, probably there are many proposals that all four of us have seen, you know, and ideas that we might consider. And the Death Row thing's really interesting. We've all done Death Row. You know, Ross Kemp, Louis Theroux, Werner Herzog, and Trevor, you know, all really good pieces on different channels with a totally different tonality. So quite often producers are shopping around ideas that could be steered to meet the needs of any one of us, you know, and I think hopefully people out there have got a clear sense of, well, what is the tonality of the channel and how do I steer a project there and what are the projects that are most appropriate for a particular channel. I'd like to think that, you know, in the landscape there are some things that we might do that none of the others would do, and I think that's true with Emma. It's easy to make a Channel 4 BBC distinction where we should be wilder, more kind of pushing the envelope, more kind of risk-taking than other broadcasters because it's in our DNA. And, you know, I don't know, Dogging Tales might be an example of that. I suspect dogging's not going to appear that readily on the BBC. And maybe that's, you know, I think that's probably right.
Or Sky.
Paul O'Grady for the love of dogging, yeah. And I wouldn't be doing Cornwall, you know.
That's a pitch.
Cornwall's not a subject that I do on Channel 4. And it's very nice for Karen and Quentin on ITV, but it's not for us. So I think, you know, although there's a middle, there's also quite clear different tonality between us, isn't there?
It does work for everything, somehow it's weaker though, isn't it? Do you know, I mean, if it genuinely would work for all of us, it's sort of not right for any of us, I think.
Apart from Death Row.
Well, it's not.
I think
execution.
there are
Yeah,
different.
but that's a
literally execution. Literally execution.
It is about that.
Yeah,
different.
Totally. I mean, I think, you know, you talk about the definition of the channels, and obviously we all know that channels have got their kind of, their inherent personality, but so have you, and I think it's, you know, it's often your own tastes and your own kind of passions that drive what you commission. I mean, what do you watch on telly that's not Channel 4 factual?
Oh, I'm a heavy factual viewer, so I watch all of Emma's output on the BBC. I watch lots of BBC 2 or BBC 4, some of the factual on BBC 1. I sometimes delve into the kind of male skewing cable channels, but, you know, I mean, to be honest, I'd slightly deny that it's about us. I think individual commissioning editors, it is important that they have tastes that they follow. But, you know, at Channel 4, if you look at the documentaries and specialist factual range of commissioners, a more eclectic and frankly crazy sometimes bunch of people, from Tabitha Jackson doing arts, David Glover doing some crossover specialist factual docs, Nick Mirsky, Emma Cooper, Anna Morales. You know, there's extraordinary difference in character and tastes and tonality. You know, Emma makes very, very interesting kind of young skewing kind of visceral contemporary docs. Nick's an incredibly thoughtful filmmaker who now likes really applying himself to very populist territories. You know, they each, I can see in each of their output something quite different. And so the department isn't defined by me and my tastes. You know, I want it to be an eclectic range of different things that come through different people.
You know, the audience tastes are, and if you don't, you know, if that isn't front of mind, then you're not doing the right thing. I suppose, you know, I mean, you obviously need to have a passion for it because, you know, you get pitched lots of stuff, so you need to feel the passion for it because they're, you know, programs, as everybody knows, they're hard to make. So you need to feel that in order to provide the support and the encouragement and also to kind of fight for that within the broadcaster, because obviously, you know, as factual, we're competing against massive dramas and big comedy and all these other things. So it's really, really important that commissioners do have a passion for their projects, but it's not kind of some sort of personal shopping trip. It's, you know, it's about providing content that you think the viewers are going to love.
So, Celia, let's come to you now, and let's talk about your first clip, which is An Idiot Abroad. Yes. And tell us about that's interestingly, how many series now?
Season 3. We've done 3, and Carl's making his next series
still
right
successful.
Now. Yeah. I mean, An Idiot Abroad, it's brilliant. It's one of, you know, one of those shows. I mean, you commission things because you love them and you're passionate about them, and I, you know, we all. I mean, I felt this, but. I don't think anybody quite anticipated that it was going to be such the hit it is. I mean, it's the most successful series on Sky ever in the history. So it's a really, really amazing piece of television. And I think it's perfect for Sky because it's sort of, you know, we need to be mainstream and we need to compete with these guys. But I think what you need to reinvent within the mainstream. And I think An Idiot Abroad does that so brilliantly. So, you know, when we're very, very used to the celebrity travelogue, this is, Carl operates within that territory, but kind of completely flips it on its head. It's very, very funny, it's irreverent, kind of has that sort of underdog thing, it's spirited, but also it's really, really warm. And I think that's one of the reasons why it makes it work for Sky so brilliantly. And he's a unique talent, which is, you know, makes it completely standard. And also, it's laugh out loud funny, and how many things genuinely laugh out loud, particularly in factuals. I think it's just like a genius piece of television. Anyway, let's show a clip.
I remember telling you when Dick Whittington walked to London that he had a cat with him, his cat. And you went, why take a cat, right? Take a little mate.
I didn't mean a little mate. I meant take a mate. Take someone who can help you, bring something with them.
Oh, hang on. Whoa.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, that I'm not going to bring anything to the party here?
I've never seen a dwarf go on a round-the-world trip on any programme. Reynold Fiennes, or whatever his name is, when he climbed Everest. He didn't say, here's my little mate I brought.
Warwick. Hello. She's Shilpa,
Hi.
the leading dancer.
Warwick Davis.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Shilpa,
He's a Hollywood star, and that's Carl. He's a newcomer, I think.
Great to see you, Carl.
He's very experienced guy.
This is your moment now. You remember the face. Sell it. Sell it.
Sound, roll camera.
Good.
Very good.
A little bit from Oliver. See it. It's good.
What else?
Body popping. Go for it. Ben, now tease him. Tease the camera. Tease the camera. Oh, yes. Here she is. Flirt. Flirt with her. Flirt. Yeah. Whoa.
Very good. It's hard to follow, really.
I mean, I think he's so sort of anti-TV. It's just, you know, in a landscape where we're all sort of, you know, he's just so brilliantly everything that TV shouldn't be, which is why I think it works. He just sort of undercuts the familiar. And I think, and also he's so everyman. I think he's just brilliant. And it's just the honesty that he brings to the TV format or the TV structure is so refreshing. And I think that's one of the reasons it works. We're talking about format fatigue. And I think one of the reasons that this works is because it kind of, it loves the heritage that it comes from, but it also has the confidence to sort of poke it a little bit. And I think that's why it's funny.
And also, the interesting thing about this is it's so unique and so different that it does that really tricky job on Sky One, which is to punch through in a world of glossy American dramas, you know, big posters on the underground about the latest, you know, big starry drama that you've got on. And I guess that's the hardest thing, isn't it, about Factual on Sky One, how you create a kind of a noise around it and a buzz when you're fighting for so much attention.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and I think that's why one of the reasons, I mean, we spend more time talking to people about how they're going to do something rather than the what it is. And I think that's the kind of the key to sort of cracking Sky is understanding how you can make it feel singular, how you can actually bring that sort of sense of spirit and irreverence, and how you can actually sort of kind of slightly break the rules. And I think it's interesting because I think maybe people think Sky is quite a safe place, but I think actually it's the one place that you can be incredibly playful, and we sort of allow people to kind of bring out the playfulness, and I think the audience really respond to that. So we may not be massively risk-taking in sort of being controversial or you know doing something that's kind of salacious like dogging. I mean, that's not kind of where we're at, but I think we are much more risk-taking and allow people to play within the form and to be creative and to try something different. And I think that's a classic example of how we've done that really well.
What I think is interesting about that from a producer's point of view is that, you know, I alluded to this in my introduction, that when a producer brings a project to a broadcaster, you know, we're not just trying to make something work for hire, or at least we hope we're not. And it's important to producers, I think, to know that a broadcaster is going to take that and nurture it and love it. And when you're in third series of something and you're still promoting it, that's incredibly encouraging.
I mean, Sky do many things brilliantly, but I think one of the things that we do amazingly well is that we really look after things. And also, you know, we don't commission as much as these guys. So I think, A, that's harder because you've really got, it's riskier for us because, you know, if it doesn't work, then it's more painful. So, you know, on BBC or ITV or Channel 4, there's another doc, another day, another night. So, but I think it also means that when we find something that we genuinely believe in, we absolutely pour the love into it, and we market things amazingly. And that's quite, you know, I'm sure all you guys deal with the marketing department, and you know, and it's not easy to kind of convince them that this is the thing they should be focusing on. Yes. But I think we are really, really smart at doing that, and I think that's one of the reasons why.
As well as the money, as well as the love. You know, and some channels are better funded as in terms of marketing. Sky's brilliant at that, but it's sort of well funded in that sense as well.
I don't think our marketing's any. I don't know, but I would suggest that your marketing is pretty massive and pretty.
Like the choices, you know, the marketing decisions being made at the BBC and probably other broadcasters. I mean, there are more programmes competing, aren't there, for airtime?
Well, we still fill 24/7. So I mean, you know, we still have the same amount, and you know, and we have massive dramas and we have comedies. So. You know, I'm talking from a factual point of view. I mean, I think, you know, there's a huge competition for marketing, and also Sky, we have, you know, we sell it as a brand as well as just programming. But so I'm just talking about factual. I think, you know, everybody has difficult marketing choices, and I'm sure you know, as many dramas and comedies and whatever that needs. So from a factual point of view, you know, when we do get behind things, we do it properly.
And I suppose, you know, you have to tell people about it, because the minute you're on digital, you know, often, not in this case, but often it's, you know, you take a naught off the end because it is a difficult environment. People have got to make the choice to come to you, whereas there's the habit for people over 40.
I mean, we have a different, you know, we're not quite as obsessed by Barb overnights. You know, it's a completely sort of different business model. What we're interested in is how our we call them customers, not viewers, which I think also makes a different relationship. Yeah. I'm a customer, and when I pay for something, I expect it to be good. So I think it sort of brings a different relationship to your audience.
To your customer.
To your customer, yes. So I mean, so we're not quite as obsessed with overnights, and we're much more interested in, you know, over a week. So you know, I mean, Idiot Abroad actually, you know, beats BBC Two and Channel 4 on its overnights. But many other programmes actually compete, maybe not on the overnights, but like Greg's we've just been airing. I mean, episode 1 of that got 1.3 million by the end of the week. You know, on its overnights it did, I don't know, a really, really, really fantastic figure. But that's what we look at. And actually you think, well, actually, you know, over 7 days, that's as good as, you know, as many other, you know, it's on an average night on Channel 4 or, you know, definitely on Channel 5, you know, we're up there. So we're not obsessed with overnight.
So the tricky question, I suppose, on the positive, you've got all that lovely marketing and love and attention, and the trickier question is on rights, because if I take an idea to Channel 4 or ITV or BBC, I still own the copyright. But I don't if I take it to Sky. Sky owns the copyright, take 50% of the back end, and this sort of spectre of Sky Vision, I'm sorry, looming.
Why is it a spectre? I think Sky Vision, everyone's the spectre. Sky Vision, it's like, if you know, nobody says the spectre of BBC Worldwide. It's like, you know, what you really actually want is a distributor that is passionate about your product, who's going to sell it like crazy, and actually, it's like Sky's really motivated to do the best for our producers. So actually, you know, I think I slightly disagree with the word spectre. I mean, you know, if you want to get into a detailed conversation about rights, I think it's probably quite boring, and there's probably lawyers and people that are in the audience that I can, if anybody's really interested, you know, find us afterwards, but it's probably not for here.
So in terms of, just going back to the nub of it, what's the job that you're looking for Factual to actually do on Sky One? Because as we discussed, you know, it's a busy channel. It's got, you know, lots of big properties and brands that are fighting for space.
I mean, I think the other thing is interesting. Is obviously that Sky One is a really important channel, but we have 4 channels, and I think if you actually look at the eclectic range of factual that we do, we have Sky Arts. So whether it's Inside the Mind of Leonardo in 3D, which is like an extraordinary piece of television, at one end, to Greg's, to It's Love Actually on Living, to theatrical release cinema documentaries on Atlantic. I mean, so obviously Sky One is obviously something we spend a lot of time thinking about, but we do actually have to, we have an extraordinary range at Sky. So I mean, Sky One's really important, but it's not the only thing we need to think about.
Excellent. Now moving on to Emma, I'm just galloping through the time here. Your first choice. Inside Claridge's,
yes.
BBC Two, rather different from An Idiot Abroad. It shows the range, I think, of what the different channels are commissioning. Tell us a little bit about why you've chosen this.
It was hard to make the choice, as I'm sure it was for everybody. But I mean, in the end, it's the scenes you remember, isn't it? A long time afterwards, I think. And it's the level of access to this sort of incredible, special place that none of us knew it would do as well as it did. I mean, I was sort of saying, Claridge's, does anyone actually know the word? Is that right for the title? I think Jane Trier is an amazing filmmaker. It's a real filmmaker's film, brilliantly exec by Claire Patterson and Magnus at the Garden. I think the storytelling's amazing. I think it's sort of ambivalent about the place it's in. It's very complicated. And I think one of the things I say a lot to people, in fact I say it too often really, but an hour on BBC is like 90 minutes compared to everyone else. What you have to put into that hour with no ad breaks, it's a slightly different thing. And I think things like Claridge's, I mean there are other examples, The Tube and so on, Secret Streets, it's the level of content and the layers and the intelligence you need at 9 o'clock on BBC Two, and I think Claridge's is just a brilliant example of it.
Who watch?
Can you tell me both about the hot artist who's coming? Because that's quite exciting.
It is. We just heard about it at 11 o'clock last night. So we don't know a whole lot. We have to now do some research, but she does have a crew of 35 people that she travels with.
Well, one of her preferences was to have a jacuzzi. But also to stay on a high floor and to stay in a penthouse. And our penthouse at this point doesn't have a jacuzzi, but it will have one in about 4 days.
Out goes the 15-year-old bath, in goes the jacuzzi, surrounded by the original marble.
Have you done this before?
Not a jacuzzi.
Not a jacuzzi,
a
but...
gym, a real big gym.
Yeah.
Actually, I have pictures of that one.
Exactly.
I don't think I've ever showed you that.
Yeah.
Wait.
Ian, do you want to kick off and start through arrivals for Friday?
The artist going into the brick penthouse. She's actually pre-registered for arrival on Saturday. Everyone's received the memo.
The Claridge's team has researched their new guest from her stays in other hotels.
I was just looking through emails there, which are quite interesting, of like specific comments made by her team from previous stays. As Ian said, going to that suite without any pre-authorization, without being accompanied by their staff, without going through the butlers, can't be stressed any stronger. It's just imperative that nobody, for any reason, goes to that suite. Also, they had issues there. They had like a tap falling off, which put the whole stay into jeopardy. So, even, it's obviously quite a serious thing to happen, but that one thing nearly lost that hotel the entire piece of business.
We're going to look at the jacuzzi that we have installed last week for our arrival on Saturday.
Okay.
Let's have a look.
Let's hope we like it. So, one jacuzzi.
Oh, wow.
Nice little remote control.
Okay. Okay. Well, this looks very, very good.
Locked.
Okay. You see, the most important thing is that you always test everything. Because, of course, everyone is telling you it's perfect and it's ready and it's installed. But Michael and I, we very much believe it's only once you've seen it, it really works. So someone will have to sit in this jacuzzi before she arrives. You.
Very good. I mean, obviously hugely successful, a great piece of access. And I suppose it begs the question, you know, for all of us, when an indie comes to you with some access, what's the main question in your mind? What's the killer question when someone's got access?
Rather than sort of blur around 4 channels, I'll
No,
just
no,
sort of
please,
focus on 2, because otherwise it just becomes a bloody list, doesn't it? I mean, on 2, it's about, well, if it's stuff like that, it's about places that you kind of know but you've never seen backstage. You've kind of, you know, so quite big names sometimes, but you don't really know enough about them. Or I think the big thing for us that we feel we've achieved on 2 observationally is, you know, we're not so reliant on health, we're not so reliant on the police, you know, we've got the Tube, we've got Crane Gang coming, we've got social workers and so on, and I suppose it's just places, like we wouldn't do Greg's probably, but, you know.
Perfect for us.
Yeah, exactly. We do Harrods.
Why wouldn't you do Greg?
Because it's really interesting when you put the taste. Like I can watch a taster tape of something and think, oh, you know, maybe, and then you put it on in the room and it's just so clear somehow when everyone's with you. I think Greg's hasn't quite. It's this 60-minute thing. I mean, I know it sounds like maths, but it isn't. So much has to happen in that hour, and it's not just about action. It's about you've got to sort of rise above your subject, and I'm not sure if I rose above Greg's, what?
I don't know, maybe if we had your budgets, we could rise above in
Good
the same
point.
way.
Yeah, well,
you know.
Later. I don't know, you've got to find places, you know, whether they're incredibly posh or not, where there's lots going on, it's a hidden world that you've never seen before, that backstage thing. I mean, even being actually the bus thing that's more than buses, roads, London's roads that's going out on Tuesday, just literally being in the bus driver's cab, you think, ooh, it doesn't look how you think it's going to look when the Oyster cards come at you. It's like this whole house, you know. It's rising above your subject. It's got to be something where, on 2, where there is a bigger statement to be made, and I don't mean in commentary.
Now, it's interesting, isn't it? We're talking about obdocs here, we're talking about access, and a lot of people are starting to commission. There's a head of steam building around obdocs. You know, I noticed it as a producer, and I'm sure you guys, it's in a concentrated form. You know, is this a golden age of obdocs that we're going into again?
Well, it feels a bit like it, I think. I mean, you know, I can't remember how long I've been there, but I've been watching telly for a long time, and I sort of feel there's an enormous amount of observational documentary going on. There's many different sorts. You know, it's good to play with them. I like the ones where, I mean, he's quite a full-on forward protagonist in Claridge's. Yeah. He unlocks the whole thing. Like drama does, you find one person to focus on and they can then take you anywhere. So, I mean, I think as long as people can come up with imaginative ways of using all that, they'll continue. But I do know also in the back of my head that one day someone will wake up and think, oh, do you know what I want to watch? I want to watch a really good format. So you've got to keep that going too.
You had, you know, Sky commissioning obdocs in volume, ITV, you know, particularly with the prisons one, have really put observational documentary back in the heart of the Schedule 5, aren't even represented here. They're making obdocs as well. BBC and Channel 4 have always made obdocs. Audiences are coming to them in different versions on all channels. So I don't know whether by the golden ages are always a bit trite, but I think the idea that right now actually is a really, really positive, strong time for documentary makers, and you know all kinds of different precincts are working. I think it's interesting that people are getting stuff to work outside the traditional places where, you know, Death Row. Honestly, if you can't make a good documentary on Death Row, with total respect to all of the different projects we've referenced, you've really failed. Whereas making a good documentary in a bakery is bloody difficult, you know. I mean, but I think what we've got to ask ourselves, looking at all of them, is what are the, and your question about what you want out of a pitch that comes in through the door, we always ask ourselves, you know, what are the stories of our time that we're telling? You know, and I think what I took of Claridge is actually, oddly, quite counterintuitively, it is a story of our time that in spite of the recession and everything, people are not just still going to Claridge's, and Claridge's is doing extremely well. The luxury end of the economy is doing bloody well. but also everybody is curious about that. And, you know, it's not that everyone just wants to watch Skint. When she was interested, Skint and Claridge's are like twin poles of our current world, aren't they?
But it's that curiosity. I think it is about those worlds that elicit universal curiosity.
But in
from either end of the spectrum, I mean, we did, I think you could make a bad documentary. You could make a niche documentary about death row, actually. So you don't necessarily make a documentary that's going to get 6 million viewers. So I think there is, you know, you make it good and you make it broad. We did Savoy Hotel, that actually, before Claridge's, that got about 5.5 million. So I think there is that sort of front of house, behind house, and where there is an inherent drama going on as well, and where what are those worlds that we're curious about? And sometimes they're famous worlds, and sometimes worlds we know, and sometimes it is about stories of our time that you have to unearth. And
but it's very easy, isn't it, after the event to you know, oh God, of course there is no guarantee at all, is there? We all know that, don't we?
But you'd have thought the opposite. You'd have thought right now, you'd turn your nose up at Claridge's, and that's what I found really interesting about it. The audience did want to luxuriate in this ludicrously overpriced world, you know, and meet the people who spend £4,500 on a hotel room for the night.
But it's the same as the 30s, isn't it? Where you either want your nose rubbed in the horror skin, or you kind of want to reach for the stars. But actually, when you get there, it's sort of tainted and a bit weird. Do you know? You know, you can't watch Claridge's and think.
It's great.
It's great, actually.
But that's what the audience wants, isn't it? It really wants that kind of behind the scenes, as you say. They want to know that, you know, what is the real life that's going on out there. And formats can, sometimes, the weaker ones, you know, sort of gloss over the facts a bit. And I don't know about you, but I feel that we're probably in a time when people like a bit of, as someone might have said, authenticity and complexity. Yeah.
In the real world.
There's a bit of schadenfreude. You know, you wouldn't spend that amount of money on, and those idiots who spend that amount of money on a suite, they're not at all happy. No, Emma, they're not. And so there is a complexity of emotion going on, and I think that people want to know how things work, whether that's backstage in a hotel, whether that's, you know, it's the sort of forensic detail that you can unpack alongside the bigger drama. And that's where documentaries are really intelligent, because they work on the micro level and they tell you something new about the familiar, but you're swept along with the characters who actually could inhabit any drama on any of our channels. And I think that's those are the magic ingredients.
Intelligent entertainment. And I think that's, you know, and I think the entertainment word has sort of, with documentary makers in the past, was probably a problem. Yeah. But I think now it's like, you know, and I think it is the mixture of the intelligent and the entertainment that's now making these work, and that's what the audience is coming to, because actually
they're complicated themselves. I mean, it's not like, you know, it's because television patronised people for a very long time. You know, the reason people respond to this stuff is they're living it. You know. Yeah. They're no different from us.
It's not bran. It's not, you know, documentaries, you know, some people, I mean, you still hear it, you know, documentaries are a bit like eating your bran, and that just makes me like run for the hills. It's kind of like, that's not what any of us are about, and that's, you know, that's
we're shining a light, aren't we, into other people's lives. Now, I know I promised second clips, but given the fact that we've managed to talk so comprehensively around all the stuff, I'll just tell you what everyone else chose. Chicken Shop on Channel 4. 24 hours in A&E. Oh, God.
Secret
History of Our Streets.
Sorry, not show, it's a great thing.
And the Valley of the...
Yeah, I chose a presenter-led clip, another example of a presenter just bringing something to light.
We have time.
Do we?
We can overrun. Let's show the clip.
Oh, we can overrun. Yeah. Right. Okay. Let's show the clips. Let's start with Chicken Shop, and we'll gallop through them. So everyone. There's another obdoc, interestingly.
Do you want me to talk or not?
We can talk. Are we off? We're off.
I'd like. Do you do wraps?
Chicken wrap, yeah.
Chicken wrap, yeah.
Some customer, they're funny. They make me laugh.
Do I need to book a table? Am I all right? Am I all right?
When people talk to me, they make me happy, because when you have like funny customer, the time is going so quick.
Is there, like, which end should I start from?
Stop.
Start.
Local resident Nick has been out for a few drinks on Clapham High Street.
Like, as in they're wrapped differently?
No, it's same, just a location of as a cover.
Yeah, so should I start at the bit that's sticking out a bit?
Yeah, this side.
Here?
Yeah.
This is the best end?
Hand by. Which side is start?
Which side? Hand. Which side would you recommend?
Okay,
this side, upside.
Top side?
Yeah.
Okay. That's quite spicy. Han?
Yeah.
You put hot sauce in here. Is this spicy chicken? You having a laugh?
It's a little bit spicy.
It's a little bit spicy.
Yeah.
I fear that your little bit spicy is my very spicy, though.
No, if you don't want to change it for you, don't worry.
No, it tastes good.
It's good, yeah.
I'm just worried about tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, though? Late tomorrow morning, I might not think it was so a good idea. On nights out, I've been known to like chant for chicken because I generally get to the stage where I've had enough alcohol, and then I just realised that the next thing on my agenda is chicken.
This is your receipt.
Oh, thank you. That's how much I paid.
Yeah.
$2.99.
Yeah.
It's very spicy for $2.99.
Where are you working?
I work in social media. Has Rooster Spot got a Facebook page?
I don't know.
I can sort that out.
Yeah.
I can, yeah. Twitter?
Which one? Twitter?
Twitter. You go to Twitter?
No.
You don't know what Twitter is? Ham. You're in the Stone Age.
Yeah, I know Twitter.
You know what Twitter is?
Yeah.
So if you were going to tweet something, what would you say?
Like what?
Like right now, if someone came in with a gun, hypothetically, I'll pretend I haven't got a gun.
Yeah.
Was like, fucking tweet something. What are you going to tweet?
So I'm just running.
You just what?
I'm just running in the back.
You just run in the bar.
Yeah.
That's what you tweet.
Yeah, it just depends on myself.
Just be like,
yeah.
Tweet something.
Yeah.
Or I'll shoot you. You'd say, at Ham, just run in the bar. It's a good tweet. These people know.
I just love the spirit of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's Emma Cooper, our Cutting Edge Commissioner, and what she did was take the whole kind of principle of the rig and take it from a huge space with 100 people, 100 cameras, and reduce it to 6 cameras and put it in a chicken shop. And it was like, you want to make a documentary where? She's going, no, chicken shop, yeah.
And you're doing
okay. Yeah, we're doing some more chicken shops and other kind of odd, unusual spaces where people are kind of interacting in different ways. I mean, what it showed us is that there's something about the fixed cameras that is able to capture the minutiae of life, and people find that really engaging. They're all real conversations in a real space that you don't normally get, and there's something about the eavesdropping nature of it that's engaging for people. And that's a great insight into nocturnal Britain and into immigration, the characters who work there are
My
all...
clip.
Sorry, yeah, no.
Emma.
My clip.
Tweet that.
Okay.
Okay. No, I picked
Emma,
it.
what
No,
did
you
you fix
No,
rig?
but it's more, slightly more, you know what it is, don't
Would
you?
you have commissioned that?
Yes. I
For
would have done.
BBC Three?
No.
BBC Two?
Anywhere, really.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Because it's the only connect thing, isn't it? It's the chance, which the Tube has a lot of, but the chance kind of connections that people have in small places. And I mean, there were some things I didn't love about it. I thought there was kind of loads of commentary at the front. I couldn't quite work out why that was all there. But I just loved the intimacy of it. I loved the in and outness. And I thought it was a really, really good use of a rig.
Are you doing any rig shows? No. Or are you leaving Channel 4 to own
Well, I
this
think one
method
day,
of technology?
when no one else... I mean, if the right... We always say, and we mean it, that if the right thing came up, we would. But it never quite does, I don't know. And I don't think we're seen as a place for rigs. I'm not sure that we need them, really. They're somewhere else.
Celia, would you do rigs?
Yeah, definitely.
Have you?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, definitely.
Next clip, please.
Yes, no, sorry.
Sorry.
Ralph. Your next clip. This is the order that they're in.
Okay, it's Secret History of Our Streets. So as I said, it's a doc with a specialist factual sensibility. Joe Bullman, the director, and Brian Hill at Century have a kind of amazing ability in this series to sort of see the contemporary world and bring history into it. And so, although it's about Charles Booth and these maps of the 19th century, it's actually about how we've changed since the war, I think. And most of it is about people, living witnesses, responses to amazing archive and photographs from post-war. And it's hard to tell that story. Andrew Marr did the history of modern Britain, but I think this does the job so much better and so much more humanely and humanly. So here's the clip. It was quite a hard thing to find the right clip from, but I like this bit.
My dad was offered to buy that house for £300. 157, £300. My dad had never seen £300 in his life. This is the bit of Portland Road I lived in. 157, we lived there. This is where my granddad lived. My nan and granddad lived in the middle. My uncle there, Uncle Fred, lived there. My Aunt Joan lived right at the very top. My granddad was a rag and bone man, and he used to have a barrow outside here. On a Saturday, he'd have all the old clothes, jerseys, shoes, and you could buy a pair of shoes for sixpence. And nobody wore underwear, no boys wore underwear. Nobody had pants and vests. Why not? You couldn't afford it.
I love the way you see the railings in the archive and you cut to the contemporary bit and they're the same railings, you know, and it really is the same spots. It's about detail, isn't it? Television can do detail really brilliantly. If you get it right and you delve really in and you feel that, you can see the sort of, you know, the past and the present working together in a really exciting way. I loved it.
It was the casting, I think, on that series that just absolutely made it. And the casting was just brilliant, fantastic characters.
It's the story of the past set in the present, which I've always wanted to do. I like to do the opposite as well.
It's really interesting.
It's interesting that both your choices have been history.
Maybe it says something about me.
The secret of your heart, Roy.
Maybe.
You could have put a presenter in that, couldn't you? And buggered it all up if you'd wanted to. You know.
Yeah. Wouldn't have helped it, would it?
No, but also they're not just telling their own stories, because in the end, the reason they all do a little bit more, they're the ones who are alive, you know, so they take on telling their grandparents' stories and further, there's a trail behind us all, isn't there? I think that's what's amazing about it, to really get what some people call ordinary people, I don't really know what that means, to tell a bigger history. Yeah. It's not just their stories, it's a big...
But that's real history, you know. It's
proper history.
Well,
it's
proper
history,
you know, history, isn't it? Yeah. It's the people's history.
But it's also economic history. I mean, the extraordinary transformation of Britain since the war.
You know.
Portland Road was so polarised, it was unbelievable.
Through a small prison. For the 300, that's probably 3 million to buy that house now, and you just kind of...
No,
more.
It's much more than that, actually. I remember the end. I mean, it's much more than that.
Much more.
But I mean, I have to admit, when I first heard about the commission, I thought it was quite unpromising, because I thought streets was a bit of a woolly proposition. Well, not a woolly proposition, it's like, why would I want to watch a programme about a street? And I thought it was quite London-focused, and I wonder whether a British audience would care about Portland Road and Caledonian Road and, you know, the other streets that they chose. But actually, it was sort of like property drew you in, and the transformation of properties, it had the kind of glue of a property programme in a way that drew you in, and just the characters, as everyone says, were brilliantly
People
cast.
going back to houses looking for their old toilet and stuff like that.
And a sense of our past and how the places we live, you know, speak to everyone, don't they? But at the other end of the spectrum on history, you've chosen a presenter-led...
I mean, we don't do very much history. I just happen to love history. We do, you know, secret homes and secret treasures, and we've got a couple of history programmes coming up at 9 o'clock. It's difficult for us. But I chose, you know, I had Trevor MacDonald on the one hand, I suppose, talking about sort of putting the living to death, and here's Joan Fletcher talking about actually bringing the past, the dead, to life in her history of Egypt. And it's exactly the same sort of set of emotions. I think it's what she does in this clip, which actually never arrived, so I hope it's the right sort of clip, is to make that emotional connection to the ancient Egyptians so personal. So I'm not sure what the clip is, but let's see if it...
Ancient Egypt. One of the most fascinating civilizations on Earth. But what was it like to be an ancient Egyptian, living in this incredible place?
It's okay trying to understand ancient Egypt on a visual level, pyramids, King Tut, mummies, but to really get into the heads of the ancient Egyptians, you've got to walk in their footsteps.
I'm Egyptologist Dr. Joanne Fletcher, and I've spent over 40 years obsessed with this lost world. While the magnificent temples and tombs of the pharaohs can tell us one story, I'm interested in another, the story of ordinary people, the real Egyptians.
It's such a privilege. We're amongst their family here.
this feeling of closeness, of warmth, of love. I'm going to uncover evidence about how they lived their lives.
Wow. It's a glimpse into the sort of world of ancient Egyptian interior design.
And reveal what they hoped for in death.
There was no Grim Reaper, just this beautiful goddess wanting to embrace them in her warm arms.
And there is one very special couple I want to get to know as I journey to their desert village home and examine the treasures from their tomb.
You can only imagine his pride and joy at receiving such a mark of royal.
So I suppose the question that comes out of that is, you don't do history on ITV, really.
We do some, because again, it's about the rich mix of flavours. So we've got something coming up called Secrets of the Workhouse, and we've got a series with Robson Green called How the North Was Built. But that's high risk for us at 9 o'clock. And we've got Secret Homes that plays on a Friday, and we've got Secret Treasures that did incredibly well for us pre-Watershed. So we do some history, but what it is, it's about that. It's about great programs that can connect you to other people's lives, whether they lived in the 30s or the 20s, or whether they live now in prisons, or whether they lived in ancient Egypt. And it's finding that emotional tug, as well as actually telling you something that you didn't know, that informs great documentaries of whatever genre, I think. And I think she's great. I mean, you know, again, it's where Trevor did one job and added a layer. I think she adds a layer that you wouldn't have got if that had not had a presenter on it. And she's very sort of voice of the people.
And great to have another female presenter.
Yeah, very good. So on to our final clip. Celia, you've chosen 24 Hours in A&E.
24 Hours in A&E.
Sorry.
No time for the clip.
No time. Just tell us about it.
I chose 24 Hours in A&E, which I'm sure everybody's seen because it's so brilliant.
Tell us.
I just love this, and it's really interesting when you sort of think, oh God, the blue flashing light territory, is it knackered, is it bust, and just when everybody's kind of slightly feeling exhausted by that genre, you know, somebody comes along and brings a new technique to it and completely reinvigorates it. And it's one of those, it's like you know, obviously we have to watch a whole load of television. I love TV, so I do it anyway. But every once in a while you see something, you go, damn it, you know, I wish we had that show. And I think this is one of these, because it's just brilliant storytelling. I just think it's beautifully executed, and I think it's one of, you know, the rig helps it, but it's also bringing all sorts of different techniques together. This is fantastic storytelling that has you totally gripped. It makes me cry, it makes me laugh. It's a proper moving watch. And I think it's one of those rare things, it's one of those, you know, the Holy Grail, which is where it's bringing all the storytelling and intelligence of documentary makers and allowing it to be something that you can return to. And I mean, I know Channel 4 commissioned the hell out of it, and I kind of understand why they've done it, but I hope they don't wreck it by not making it keep it special. And I think if it's just on all the time, it will sort of wear itself out. And so I think, you know, when you get these brilliant brands, I think I want to make it feel special. I don't want it to just feel like it's any old night kind of thing. But I think we can all learn about the storytelling, and, you know, it's almost the sort of drama structure.
And the challenge, I suppose, is to, you know, how do we tell it differently next time?
Yeah,
it's, you know,
it's all great. So, you know, when something raises the bar, that's when you go, that's really good television. And the audience love it because it's just fantastic emotional storytelling. So I think it's a great series.
Good point to finish. Well, we've talked our way through kind of the huge range of factual programmes on all our channels. We're being booted out, so you can come and talk to people after the session and ask your questions individually, I'm sure. Thanks very much, and please join me in thanking our panellists for being so interesting.